All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're going to run a system diagnostic, but we're not looking at a computer. We're looking at Japan. Think of it less as a country and more like a piece of software, a kind of social operating system. And our goal? To figure out why its relationship with technology is so, well, strange and contradictory. So let's boot up the analysis. This quote, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures this core paradox. I mean, on one hand, you've got these incredible futuristic robots and cutting-edge tech, but on the other, a deep, deep reliance on fax machines, paper documents, and physical stamps. It's kind of like a system that's running the latest, shiniest apps on top of a really old legacy operating system. And you know what happens when new code meets old code, right? You don't just get a few bugs, you get system-wide crashes. Okay, so here's our game plan for this diagnostic. We're going to look at three key areas. First, this idea of an anchor of responsibility. Then we'll dive into how the system tries to hack physical space. After that, we'll explore the authentication boundary between humans and machines. And finally, we'll wrap it all up and ask, is it time for a fundamental OS update? All right, let's dive into our first diagnostic, the anchor of responsibility. And honestly, there is no better case study for this than the big push to replace physical health insurance cards with the new digital My Number system. This is where you can really see the OS's core programming at work. So the government is pitching this really sleek digital future. The idea is super simple, right? Starting in late 2025, your My Number card, and eventually just your smartphone, is all you'll need as proof of insurance. Seamless, efficient, modern. The dream is to finally get rid of that worn-out paper card you have to carry around forever. But here's the reality. For every single person who, for whatever reason, doesn't use the new digital system, the government is literally mailing out tens of millions of paper certificates. It's this massive, parallel, analog system running right alongside the digital one, which kind of defeats the whole purpose, right? It completely undercuts the efficiency. So you have to ask, why? Why on earth would you build a paper bridge right next to your brand new digital superhighway? Well, it all comes down to a core principle that's been hardwired into Japan's social OS, something we can call institutional infallibility. Basically, the system operates on the belief that the national health insurance program has to be 100% reliable 100% of the time, no exceptions. The mere possibility of a server going down or a digital card failing and leaving even one single citizen unable to prove their insurance status, that's not just a bug. That's treated as a fatal system crash. You know, in this OS, 99.9% uptime is actually considered a 100% failure. And if you want to see just how much the system values this physical piece of paper, just look at the price tag. To stop people from losing these paper certificates, some insurance unions are charging up to 10,000 yen. That's about 70 US dollars for a single replacement. Now, think about that for a second. That is 10 times the fee for reissuing the actual high-tech, chip-enabled My Number card itself. The paper is more valuable than the plastic. So, here's the key takeaway. That paper backup, it isn't a bug in the system. It's a deliberately designed feature. It's the ultimate physical responsibility anchor. It's there to guarantee that when the digital system fails, when there's any confusion or ambiguity, there's a tangible piece of paper that clearly, absolutely, and without question assigns responsibility. Okay, so that need for a physical anchor of responsibility, it gets even more complicated in our next diagnostic, hacking physical space. This is where we see the OS try to slap a set of logical rules onto the chaotic, messy, analog world of logistics. And as you can imagine, the friction is pretty much immediate. So first, let's get something straight. You might have heard about the 2024 problem, which was all about regulating truck drivers' overtime hours. The upcoming 2026 problem is a whole different beast. This one targets the big companies that are actually shipping the goods. It legally forces them to make the entire supply chain way more efficient. So, sticking with our OS metaphor, this 2026 law is basically a software patch. It's a logical layer of new rules and responsibilities that's designed to optimize a fundamentally analog protocol. I'm talking about the messy, unscripted, physical reality of getting a box from a truck to a doorstep. It's the classic case of trying to fix a hardware problem with a software update. And what's the proposed solution to this hardware problem? Well, of course, it's more technology. You've got major companies like Yamato Transport already testing out these autonomous delivery robots in big apartment complexes, and the goal is to have them ready to roll right when these new rules hit in 2026. But these super high-tech bots are running smack into a very low-tech wall. Yeah, they can navigate hallways just fine, but they can't get a signature on a paper delivery slip. They can't play that human game of Tetris you need to master to load a truck full of all these different awkwardly shaped packages. And here's the crucial part. Without that physical signature, who's responsible if a package goes missing? Once again, the analog world is demanding its analog anchor of proof. And this brings us to our final diagnostic. And this is where the line between analog and digital gets really, really blurry. We're talking about the authentication boundary. This is the interface between generative AI and the very human, very analog concepts of creativity and responsibility. So, the Japanese legal system has tried to draw a very clear line in the sand here. It's a concept called Sosaki Teki Kanyo, which translates to creative involvement. And the rule is actually pretty simple. If you just type a prompt, like a cat in space, and the AI spits out an image, that image has zero copyright protection. Copyright, and all the legal responsibility that goes with it, only kicks in when a human has made a significant creative contribution that goes way beyond just a simple prompt. And we're already seeing this principle in action in recent court rulings. For instance, when a user specifically and intentionally told an AI to mimic another artist's style, they were held responsible for copyright infringement. But when an AI was just used as a tool to create something genuinely new, that was ruled to be totally fine. It shows the courts are laser-focused. They don't really care what the AI did. They care about the intent and the creative involvement of the human behind the keyboard. So this creates what, in our systems thinking world, we call a handshake error in the social OS. Think about it. Just like the system needs a physical pen-on-paper signature for a package, it's now desperately searching for the human signature on a piece of digital art. The protocol for verifying responsibility between the AI's output and the human's input, it's just not connecting cleanly. And that leaves us with the fundamental question that the entire system is wrestling with right now. Where does the digital output end and the very real, very human responsibility begin? At what exact point does the work of the machine stop and the legal and creative responsibility of the human start? So after running all these diagnostics, what's the final call on Japan's social OS? Well, our analysis of insurance, logistics, and AI, they all seem to point to the exact same conclusion. The system doesn't just need a quick patch. It might be time for a fundamental OS update. Which leads to the big question, right? Is this social operating system, one that for decades has been built on stability and clear physical accountability, is it now basically obsolete in the face of modern tech? The root cause, it seems, is a core incompatibility. This OS was designed for an analog world, a world where responsibility is absolute, it's centralized, and it can be physically proven with a signature, a stamp, a person in a room. But now, it's trying to run in a digital world where systems are distributed, they're probabilistic, and they often don't have a single point of failure or a single person to blame. So what would a true upgrade look like? It seems like it would require three huge paradigm shifts. First, you'd have to move from a mindset of trying to eliminate 100% of all risk to one that's focused on building resilient systems that can actually handle errors gracefully. Second, you'd need to shift away from this total reliance on physical proof and start building genuine trust in digital authenticity and verification. And finally, and this is probably the most difficult one, the culture would have to evolve from blaming individuals to evaluating the systems and processes that led to the problem in the first place. So ultimately, this tells us that Japan's biggest challenge isn't about adopting new technology. I mean, it has plenty of that. The real challenge, the next major OS upgrade, is all about fundamentally redesigning its very concept of responsibility for a completely new digital era.